Hey, how's it going? I wanted to go over a couple things that may help you out as you're preparing for your collaborative project. And I wanted to show you, I wanted to focus on with this little sequence uh, a thing within the Tone.js library called the part event. And what the part event does is it enables you to kind of set up a sequence of sections of a piece of music, let's say. So you have part one that goes into part two that goes into part three. And these parts can be as complicated as you'd like. So that's what I want to show you how to do, is how to sequence a group of different sounds into different parts and how you can loop those. And then I'll show you some different kind of stuff with sound effects and things like that towards the end. So I have a super simple version. I'm going to give you all the files that I'm showing you here, so you can mess with these and modify them and make them your own. So it's basically nothing except a button and a slider that's on the actual web page, like a lot of the stuff we've been doing here. Here's where the script starts, and we set the beats per minute. And I just have a simple synth set up. And here's where we're going to look at some of the different things about how this part thing functions. And so the main thing that I wanted to show you here is that one of the ways that you can work with time within the Tone.js library is with this, what they call this is measures, beats, and then 16th notes. So what this is like doing is like saying, here we have, this is a measure, this whole thing, and these are different beats. This is a symbol that shows you one note that takes up all 4 beats of this measure. And so we're just dividing up these measures. This is a measure, there's 3 measures here. And then we're dividing, this is a half note, whole note, quarter note, eighth note. And so 2 of these equals this. 2 of these equals that, 2 of those equals this. So what I want you to see, one of the reasons why I wanted to make this tutorial for you is to show you how you can start to, we talked about different jazz musicians and Keith Richards and stuff that use different ways of going on the and the beat and stuff like that, and I wanted to show you how you can achieve those kind of things. And so by using this measures, beats, and 16ths, that's how you do it. So the way that this part object likes to receive its information, it's in these time moments in time when you want that to happen, and then what note you want to have triggered. So it's an array of subarrays. So here we have an array that is filled with these pairings of timing and note. And so what I have here is I'm keeping everything really simple for this first one, and just saying, okay, this means start at the very beginning, and then here this is on the next beat. Okay, so on the second beat, and on the third beat, and on the fourth beat. And with, as you know, with computers, we're always typically counting from 0. So in our we typically say 1, 2, 3, 4 and kick the song up. But we're really going in this computer version of 0, 1, 2, 3. And then this is where the next measure starts. So we have a phrase here that's 2 measures long, and on each beat we have a new note here. It's going up chromatically. So last thing I want to show you before we play this is now you can actually designate how long you want this sequence of notes to play. And so I'm going to say play this starting at the beginning and then play it for 2 measures. That's the loop length. And then we could, if I put in here the number 18, it would play 18 times. These 2 measures would play 18 times. Okay, so there's another little thing that we can add. So you can see once we establish our part here, we are just referencing part, and then humanize is saying, okay, you can maybe go a little bit 2 milliseconds in either direction of when the beat actually is supposed to happen. And it just makes things sound a little bit less robotic when working with music. Okay, so that's all that's happening here. Let's listen to it. It's super simple. And let me just get that queued up for us here. I believe this one's here. Okay. Okay. So it's going to be, if everything goes right, it's just two measures repeated twice. So that's where it started again. Nice. And that's it. Okay, so what we could do is we could make this be 200 beats per minute, and then if we wanted to say, let's have this loop 4 times, whoops, 24 times, let's just say 4 times. And what I want to show you is that we don't, even though we have all of this information here, there's 2 measures worth of an array of different combinations. If I change this to say, okay, just play that 1 measure, this is really controlling all of the action here. So I'm going to save that, and then let's see if we hear, what we should hear is now a loop of just 1 measure played 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Perfect. Okay, so it's working. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now let's jump to how do we make part 1, part 2, part 3, and how do we control how do we schedule those, okay? So that's in this part HTML file, and all I've done here is I've added 3 synths. One's a pluck synth, like that one we've been listening to. This is a amplitude modulation synth and a frequency modulation synth. So what we have here is, just like in the last one, we've set up, it's probably the same kind of part. Some of the notes are different, but it's still very similar on each beat. And then this is really for demonstration purposes. So I have part 2, and what this one does is it plays on each quarter note and just has the first 3 notes, and it leaves the last note blank, like a rest. So I wanted to show you how you don't have to fill up all the space, you can leave a rest. And then part 3, that is, we have a beat on every, a note on every beat, plus we're adding a 16th note, so it's going to be 1 and then a 16th note right after. Okay? And then what we're doing here is we're saying, with this part referencing this right up here, we're saying start at the 0 measure and then play for the amount that I've designated here. In this case, it's for 1 measure. And then we're going to say, we're just designating the loop is 1 measure long. This is for part 2. This is why I'm confused. I don't have the part 1 set up as in this syntax here, but it should work fine. And then we're jumping to part 2 at the, and here's the trick. This is the big thing that I want you to see here, is that I'm saying start part 2 at the 2nd measure. So let's listen to this one here, and we'll listen for these different parts. And once again, I'm going to use Chrome because that tends to work best with 2, 3. I slowed it down. 2, 3, 4. That's part 2. Rest. 1. We're going to loop that twice. Now it's part 3. With these. Okay, great. So we just said for part 2 and part 3, play the 2 measures, loop them twice, and then finish. Okay. We have the humanize going there as well. And now what I want you to see is you could have things called part 1A, part 1B, and you can start things at the same time. So you could have a really intricate kind of rhythm set up here for part 1A, and something that plays with that with a different instrument, perhaps, something like that. So let me just show you. You could call it part 1A, you call it whatever you want, but have them start at the same time. So now what we're going to have, if I do this, is just the part and part 2 we're going to play at the exact same time. And then I'll move this one up. Let's say I'm going to rest for 4 beats and then start this next one. Okay? I'm going to refresh that and click. Now you can hear them. rest for a beat, pardon me, a measure. Okay, so you get the sense of how to work with that. So you can have lots of things starting at the same time. Just because this is a simple thing to get your mind around how this works, it doesn't mean that you can't go totally mental with this once you get the hang of it. Okay? Let me make sure I'm not forgetting something else you wanted to see. Okay. So one of the things that I kind of, it's a little awkward to me, is how this part is defined, where basically there's an anonymous function in here and then an array. And just for me, I feel like I'd like to kind of see that a little bit clearer. It's a little confusing to me to see it the way that this has been written here in the example file. So what I wanted to show you is a different way that you could set this up with an alternate syntax. And so what I want to show you here, now we're in the part v2 alt syntax file. And so here's the part that I just copied and pasted from the other one that we've been working on. And what I want to show you is I want to set up separate these so it kind of makes it easier to understand what's going on. I'm going to call this riff 4. You could call it anything you want. And I'm just going to take this array that we've set up here and I'm going to remove that. Okay? And so now I just have an array filled with subarrays called riff4. And now I told you that this was an anonymous function. And I want to take that and make it into a named function. So I'm going to go Command X, and I'm going to call that variable my function. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay, and then semicolon. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is that now we have a named function that we can call on, and it's going to receive the time and note information here in its parameters. Okay, and let me just finish cleaning this up. So now we have this variable is much simpler and easier to read. We can just say my function here, and then say riff4. So it's just a different way of breaking this up. I wanted you to just see if this other way of writing this stuff was confusing to you. You can split it into these different parts. Basically, we've taken that one thing and just split it into these 3 different parts, just to kind of make it more interesting and easier to understand. This is basically the same exact, I think it's the same exact, oh, there's a few little tricks in here that let's play this and see what it is. Okay. First, I'm going to just erase this because I don't think I'm calling those things. Okay. So it's still 3 parts, just written with a different syntax. This is part 2. Okay, with some different synth stuff. I want to just draw your attention to some of the craziest stuff happening right at the beginning. I think it was talking over it. Listen to this just for a second. So you hear that squirrely stuff going on there. I'm going to get rid of that for right now. I want to show you what was happening there. So by writing this in this new way, breaking it into arrays and functions, what you could do here is now have a function that has a conditional statement in it that says if the note is something like C4, treat it this way. you could say play a whole different synthesizer, which is what I'm doing here, if it's any of these other groups of notes. Else, I have I looked at, let's say, the synth 3, there's a parameter I can control called the harmonicity, and that's what's making that squirrely sound I was talking about, and I'm detuning it a little bit. So I'm adding some kind of flavor that's changing every time, every pass through. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm adding that kind of indeterminate element that we talked about before each time that function is called. Okay? So that's a cool trick as well. Now, I want to finish off quickly with some other two. There's another way that you can kind of schedule events that I just wanted to point out to you. If you're enjoying using the part thing, go with that. This doesn't, it's just a different kind of way of writing stuff. What I wanted to look at here is not only show you how to schedule these things in a different way, but also I wanted to show you how to use effects in a little bit cooler way than we've had a chance to look at in class. Okay, so what I've done in this one, this is called Schedule 1 that I'm looking at. And if you want more information about the tone transport schedule, I put the links to this up here. There's just two basic synthesizers, the pluck synth I'm working with. Then I'm using this effect. It's called an auto wah. It's kind of like that wah-wah pedal Jimi Hendrix used to use, if you ever saw any videos of them where they're either controlling it with their feet, but this is just automating that instead. And so what you're doing here is it's like you're kind of plugging it into the effect and then the effect to the master. So I'm using a noise synth here and connecting it to the auto wah, which I've set up there, and the auto wah to the master. Okay? And so here's what's happening here. It's a little bit different way of scheduling this. The transport is just saying on the pardon me, on the 0 and third beat, trigger the trigger synth function here. On the second and fourth beat, trigger the trigger synth 2, and then I have a function here called trigger noise, and that's happening on every 16th beat. So it's on the 16th note. You can see here you're using that same musical syntax with the beats, measures, measure, beat, and 16th. So I'm employing that trick right there. Okay, and let's just take a quick listen to this. And so here you can see here's trigger synth. That's pretty straight ahead. What I'm doing here in this trigger synth function is just creating a random pitch. This is a specific pitch, always C2, random one on top. And then what I'm doing here is every time that trigger noise is done on the 16th note, I'm controlling a variable of the auto wah. And this Q is like a filter that will filter out. You can hear my voice, and it's a particular range of frequencies between, let's say, 200 to, let's say, 2000. And what it's doing is saying, maybe just take a small slice of that, the slice around 1000 with 50 frequencies in either direction. So 1050 to 1000 to 950. And it's changing that over randomly between a particular range each time this gets called. So let's listen to this and hear how you can start to play with some of these effects and incorporate some of those indeterminate ideas. And so this is just simple, kind of two simple synths with a 16th note noise thing on top. So that weird gurgly thing is from that auto wah effect, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I just am including it here so you can practice and play with these things and see how that modification is done, and I'll include the how to use a link to that effect. But you see where his site's pretty good with showing you all of that stuff. The last one I wanted to end with is we talked about these different. I'm doing a lot of stuff that's using quarter notes, 16th notes. There's also these triplets, and what I wanted to just show you is an example of these quarter note triplets over these quarter note beats, and it gives you a really kind of interesting feel. We talked about this in class. I just wanted to show you how to do it with the script. So this is a so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Has a cool kind of, the complexity, that feel is really nice. So I wanted to provide you an example of that. Like everything, all of these ones, you can speed them up and hear how it sounds slower or faster as well. So enjoy. Hopefully that's helped play with the part information and see if that can be something that you can use or it can be valuable to you in your collaborative project.